So let's talk about aesthetics. Sometimes when you talk about functionalism, you talk about it, not being hampered by aesthetics. So what is aesthetics now? How would you, having explored functionalism, how do the two interact? And do functional buildings have to be ugly, or
Well, I still don't know what aesthetics are. I know there's a word that generally describes something, but the minute you try to use it, when you're trying to make something, make a product, to design a product, it doesn't help you. It just sits there as some kind of a principle that you should know better. You should know better. You should know well, even though nobody does. They'll talk about it later, like after the building is designed, and you'll do things, balance and harmony and whatnot, for the sake of aesthetics. And you kind of tinker with the relationships of components for quote unquote aesthetic purposes. But you'll never be able to very profoundly explain what that whole game is and how to win at it. My hunch is, or my thought is, that you don't win when you play with aesthetics, because there's too much social approval in there, some trendy artificiality that hooks into that. So this is where functionalism kicks in, because functionalism doesn't do that. Functionalism discards all of that. You as a designer it's almost mandated that you do not think about aesthetics. And then the question, well, and that you do, what you do is what's natural. And this brings you very close to nature itself, the whole realm of nature. And functionalism and nature are deeply, entwined. This introduces a different, functionalism introduces a different level of aesthetics. It's certainly not adverse to beauty, but it uses beauty, it relates to beauty in a completely different way, and in my mind, a vastly more profound form of beauty, expression of demonstration of beauty. And that's a simple word: integrity. If you design a building or anything you should design a building that has integrity from one end to the next. Every time you manipulate the form of that building, that you're doing it from integrity, that you can't fail, you can't help but have beauty, because integrity and real beauty are almost one and the same. The real icing on the cake for functionalism, and I mentioned that nature and functionalism work together. Functionalism is the way that nature builds. And if you accept that nature is in charge of us and our environment, the earth, the entire universe, that puts an incredible spin on the path that you're on with functionalism. If you're designing a building with the principles of functionalism, you are working hand in hand with nature, with that most powerful of all principles and forces in existence. So that ought to tell you that you're on some kind of a right track. And nature, for example, builds functionalistically as well. And yet it does so in a much more profound way. It does the same thing. It designs and builds products, but one thing it doesn't do, it doesn't make a tree, for example, because it's beautiful. The beauty of a tree is something we assign to it. And if we move that into our aesthetic thinking, then we're making a tragic mistake and demonstrating how little we understand of what's really going on with that tree. The tree doesn't care at all about its appearance. The tree is beautiful because it is integrity. You know, it's exactly the way that it should be in order for it to function perfectly with all of its systems of osmosis and transpiration and perspiration and the roots under the ground and the leaves, photosynthesis, and all of that in order to simply be a life on the planet. That's its purpose, and it has a certain its own system, and it takes a form that is completely functionalist as a response to those systems.